Well, on a monthly basis, we get together with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game, and uh, we don't necessarily do it on the. We don't have what we'd call a set schedule. Kelton just emails me a date, and I say, "Oh, that'll work out." And we decided on the 18th, but my planning book, Kelton, you got to understand this. It ran out, so I had to email him the other day because I couldn't remember because I didn't have a planning book. I'd ran out of dates in it, so I got to go buy a new one. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "I'm in Thursday." But first of all, welcome back.
Well, it's good to be here.
We've got a lot to talk about today, and obviously this time of year we start to change not only the seasons that we see out the window, but some other seasons start to change as well.
They do, and it's kind of one of those in flux where the sportsman's really wondering what to do right now
Yeah.
because it's like, well, most of our hunting season's over and we're talking about the new one. So what do I do right now?
You mentioned ice fishing. First of all, weather has changed dramatically in just the last couple of weeks.
Last
From
couple days.
Yeah, so we're starting to see, I think, that thaw build up.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's what we're basically talking about ice fishing is just a warning to be really careful when you're out there. We've had a lot of ice that's getting soft. I guess the rule of thumb I like to use you've been on ice quite a bit, haven't you,
Yeah,
over the years? If it's not talking, cracking really loud, not good ice.
yeah.
And so I mean, it sounds really weird, and my wife would get freaked out when she'd be out there and hear those big cracks, it's cracking clear across the lake, but that means that ice is nice and firm. Right now, we're getting slush on top of it. People have been really doing well down at Salmon Falls Creek and some of these other area reservoirs, but be really, really cautious right now. We've had a huge change in weather, rain, there's slush on top of the ice. We just don't want anybody to go swimming.
I know that from my own experience when I was a kid. And my dad, he ran a state park right down the lake one time, and
Hmm.
we lived there. And really cold nights, you could literally hear that ice cracking
Oh,
itself
you bet.
like a boom.
It snaps and cracks and pop, and that means that ice is solid and good. But right now, as it's starting to get pitty and it's softening up, there's no sound on it. And so, I guess they call them a spud hoe or a tamping bar for tamping wooden posts, and it's just a big metal bar. I always carry that and test the ice out in front of me because I'm not a little guy and I just don't want to go through. And so, I don't swim that well in an ice hole. And so just be really cautious out there. There can be some really good fishing if we get another cold snap. But I mean, even on cold days like today where the wind's blowing and it's 45 degrees, ice is melting, so just be cautious.
We used to skate on a canal when I was a kid, and it wasn't deep enough that we were going to be under our head if the ice gave way. But we'd set a couple of nets out there, and we'd play hockey sometimes during the
Yeah.
winter. And one year there was one area off to the side where it got a little soft, and it ended up having a hole in it. And occasionally the puck would drop through there,
Uh-huh.
and a friend of mine would just simply go over, take off his gloves, and reach down and
Find it.
find it in the mud, pull it back out, and we'd go playing again. But probably wasn't the wisest thing we ever did.
No, but that's kids.
Yeah,
That's where that Darwin Award typically. You
yeah,
got to be
that's right.
really cautious. But
Got to start somewhere along that canal, I
yeah.
think. You got another note here. Speaking of fishing, a lot of fishing talk today, but some fishing records.
Well, what I wanted to talk about, Bill, is we've got a brand new record book, and it's a catch and release record book. It's kind of different. Typically most of your record books is a weight on fish. The fish is put down, and then I mean you take it home and eat it or whatever you're going to do
Hmm.
with it, do taxidermy, which is fine. But we've got such a group of people that are just catch and release anglers anymore that the Idaho Fishing Game started a catch and release record book. Um, I was just going to read through a few of the records. I don't have the people's names, but if you catch a fish and you want to put it in the record book, what you need to do is get a tape measure and measure the fish, measure the length of the fish, and then take a photo of your tape under the fish or on top of the fish, from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail. Do not lay it on the gravel. We're trying to release these fish, and keep them alive. Sturgeon and salmon need to be measured in the water.
Hmm.
And then we need a picture of the person with the fish, with their face, and we need a picture of the fish on the tape measure. And then you can record it. Right now, and this has just been in the last month and a half, this has been going on. We've got a 9.5-inch bluegill that was caught at CJ Strike, which is a lunker bluegill. Um, a Bonneville whitefish from Bear Lake that was 19 inches, a Cisco from Bear Lake that was 7.8, a brown trout from the Boise River that's 24.5 inches, a pumpkin seed that's 7 inches from CJ Strike. Right here in town, we've got Crystal Lake rainbow trout, 23 inches, and another one at 21.5. And then we've got a Boise River rainbow at 17, a steelhead from the Clearwater, 33, Salmon River steelhead, 27, yellow perch, this is a big one, 16-inch. You perch fisherman?
Used to be, yeah.
Oh boy, that's a giant one. 16 inches, and then we got a West Coast white sturgeon that's 80 inches. It was taken right down here in the Snake River. So if you want your name in the record book, all you have to do is get a photograph of yourself with the fish. Leave the sturgeon and the steelhead in the water and the salmon, But if they've got the adipose fins on and you can't keep them, well, and if you're going to release them, they got to stay in the water. But get those pictures taken and get them sent in, and we'll get you in the record books.
The first fish you ever catch when you're a kid is a lot like the first time you ever get kissed by a girl. You never forget
I actually remember the fish.
Yeah.
No.
I caught a perch. My very first fish was a perch. I was about 4 or 5 years old. And just the thrill, I remember when I realized I had something on the line, because you'd never experienced it before, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, and
Yeah.
you feel like you're in the big leagues.
Oh, you do. Well, I can still remember. I'd caught a lot of fish, but I can still remember I was up fishing a beaver pond, and I was just a young kid. I caught a 3.5 pound cutthroat, and it was just like I can remember that like it was yesterday, pulling that big old lunker in onto the beaver dam, and I was just so tickled. But no, it's a lot of fun. Get those kids out and get them fishing. I mean, it's great memories. Thing is people miss about fishing is it's really simple. And then and it's inexpensive. It's an inexpensive hobby to get your kids out. If you're looking for something to do in the spring, over spring break every year, uh, for several years, I took my boys steelhead fishing. We didn't catch a lot of fish, but we built a lot of memories, because it was a lot of years it'd be raining that week or something like that, but it was just fun and getting out and doing that fishing. And this way you can kind of add a little bit more fun to it. Doesn't cost you anything. Get in the record book, and it's just a way to get people more involved in fishing.
And my dad always told me you're best fishing in the rain anyway.
Well, unless it's steelhead, and then the river turns muddy and you can't see them, so they can't. It's just the water rises and stuff. But no, I would agree with you. In the summer on the lakes and stuff like that, you catch a lot of fish when it rains.
We talking a little bit about records with fish. I have a friend who runs a bait shop, and he weighs in fish both from the Atlantic Ocean, but also people who catch them inland as well,
Hmm.
because he's got a lot of lakes and rivers nearby. He said to me one time though that it won't affect length, but he said the fish you catch by the time you bring it in is usually a couple of pounds lighter when he weighs it in than when you initially caught it.
And they do, and they lose a lot of weight. And so we have we have certified scales for the other record book there, but you want to get, if you're going to put them in the take record book or the other record book, get those fish to a certified scale as quick as possible and get them measured. But bring them to the office, or there's a place, Rogerson, little grocery store down in Rogerson. They got a certified scale there because they've got all those big walleye, and so they got their scale certified, and they do records. And so there's quite a few places around the area that can do that. But it's a lot of fun just getting out and doing a little bit of fun. But it's that time of year, and the sturgeon fishing's going really well. I got friends that are out fishing for sturgeon all the time. You ever caught a sturgeon yet?
No, no.
You,
Takes
you,
some muscle, doesn't it?
well, yeah, I catch a 7 foot fish. I mean, 8, 9, foot fish, and they pull pretty good. And so, but it's really amazing how docile they are once you get them in. If you get them over on their back, I mean, they'll give you some fits, but just reach and grab that upper lip and hang on to them while they're laying on their back, and you can get your measurements and all that stuff. Hard part though, right now, is jumping into the water to get the tape stretched across them and get your picture taken by them.
What do you think about those guys down in the bayous who do what they call noodling? Seems to me to be a little dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's just, and they probably think it's dangerous to sleep in the mountains around here with grizzly bears and wolves and mountain lions. I think it's just that old thing is grizzly bears, and I worked in Alaska for quite a while, and I've worked in different places with bears. They really don't bother me. Sharks terrify me.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
people that scuba divers like, it's no big deal. You just jump in there and go. We're in there all the time. I think it sounds fun to me. I think Newland would be kind of cool just to be able to walk along I think you'd have to try it though, because it would raise the hair on the back of your head
Yeah.
for a
But
little
the, the,
bit.
the teeth generally on the catfish are small. So it's more, you don't really feel a lot of like
But that's
bite.
but that's not the issue. Is my issue is reaching into a snapping turtle den or something like that.
Yeah.
And
That would
so
be if you make the mistake because you
yeah.
don't really know.
Yeah, you're walking along the edge of the bank trying to find big holes to stick your arm in, and so maybe a glove. Maybe
Kel-
a glove.
Kelton Hatch is our guest in the studio this morning, and of course, he'll be here for the entire hour. He's also taking some of your telephone calls as well. It's 9:17. It's 38. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX, News Radio 1310.com. Look, we've got a couple of minutes. We can at least get into this. There are some new fishing rules.
There are, and I just wanted people to know it's that time of year. People are starting to think out and doing a little more fishing as the spring weather comes. We do have the new fishing regs out. There's a few new regs in there. The biggest change is down at Salmon Falls Creek Reservoir. You can only keep one fish. I can't remember over the inch limit. You can keep some others that are smaller, but you'll need to look at that. I should have gotten that memorized, and I forgot to. And a month ago I knew it, but I'm losing it. And then also on the possession limit, now you can keep up to 3 possessions of fish. What that means is a daily bag limit on some lakes is 6. Well, if you're camping there for 3 days, now you can take 18 fish home. This is a new rule. Before you had to leave heads and tails on them. Now you can vacuum seal them and you can take the tails and the heads off, but you do need to leave the skin on them so we can ID what type of fish they are. But just get into those new regs, look them over, and just so you're ready for this season's.
Yeah, you can't really go out and claim ignorance because these have been published already.
These are published, and we know that they get changed a lot, but hey, it gives you a little, I don't know. It's tough to try to keep up with them. That's why we're trying to get stuff out to folks right now.
And that's because, of course, a lot of these changes come just because of changes in population. And so that gets altered every few years to adjust to that.
It does. And, this rule was changed because of some rules that they'd changed with salmon, and they just wanted to make them a little easier to understand and read. Sometimes I think we've got people that are putting these rules together that are actually trying to make them more difficult. But truly, our goal is to make it simplify things for folks. But our main issue is to make sure that we can preserve, protect, and perpetuate wildlife for the people of Idaho so that you can have it for generations and generations to come. And that's the only reason we have these rules.
More with Kelton Hatch coming up in just a couple of minutes. He's here from Idaho Fishing Game this morning. And of course, he's available to take some of your telephone calls as well. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Top Story with Bill Colley. And I'm going to call it 40. Bouncing back into the 40s, at least for the moment. Now, our weather is a little cooler today than it has been the last few days. In fact, we reflected on that at the opening of the hour. Kelton Hatch is our guest this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com with Bill Colley. It's 9:24, 39, and we have been bouncing around between 37 to 48 this morning. It's all over the place, but it's a sign that the seasons are changing and spring is on the way, and we're going to be looking over the next couple of weeks at a bit of a warm-up, I think, in a week to week and a half into more spring-like temperatures. But that means, of course, a lot of people are going to get that spring fever. And
they are.
That means they've got to start thinking about what they need to do before they get out into the woods.
They do. And so, yeah, it's just that it's just one of those real conversion type times of year that I don't know, you're kind of lost on what to go do and have fun.
Yeah.
Right now. And so, we're getting a lot of people out right now starting to horn hunt. And have you ever heard of horn hunting, what that is?
No.
The deer, like the mule deer, lose their antlers. Most of them have lost their antlers by now, and then the elk will begin starting to lose their antlers here in another month. But I guess, and then people go out and collect these, and then they can sell them, or they hang on to them. It just depends on the people. I guess this is part of the wintering wildlife that we want to just caution people. We're still in the middle of winter. Right now, even though it's starting to melt up, try not to push the animals too much when they're out collecting antlers and things like that. They're still kind of in that critical stage. They're not putting on much weight. There hasn't been a lot of food, and so if we push them around, typically this is the time of year we start losing most of our deer is in February and March. That seems kind of weird and some kind of counterintuitive, I guess. But they've been without really good feed for the last 2 months, and so they just browse and pick, and have been just trying to. They survive on the fat on their back, but then they've been browsing and picking this time of year, and so now the grass is starting to green up, and they're starting to try to build their energy up. And if people are pushing them all the time, it helps deplete those energy supplies, and it actually increases mortality on those. So we just want folks to be cautious on that. Another thing we want folks to be cautious about is like right now in the Sun Valley area and several of the places along up out of Fairfield and Arco and even along the South Hills, we've had a ton. I mean, a ton of elk that have moved into haystacks and down into the valleys. Um, just be cautious when you're driving around. A lot of deer in town. You been seeing any deer when you've been going through town?
Yeah, I've seen a couple.
So you just really need to be cautious this time of year because they're really in that transition, moving from, one range to the next, or trying to find greener grass, or trying to find better forage other places. So they're moving around a lot. We've got about 1,500 deer elk down in the downtown Sun Valley area, and so people just need to be cautious when they're driving the roads, and be aware that there's a lot of animals out there right now.
We have a caller with us. Caller,
Oh,
you're on the air with
great.
Kelton Hatch.
Hey, good morning, Bill. I need a question for Kelton. Several years back, they kind of took the limit off of the salmon up in Mackey Reservoir.
Yep.
We were up there fishing, and there was some people there in a big motorhome that were catching and canning the salmon with pressure cookers right there in their trailer. Is this going to be like the 16 fish limit? Is it still legal to do? What's the situation on that?
That's all that they can do. And if you see something like that again, give one of our officers a call. We've ran into a few of these cases where we've had people can as many as 100 fish sitting in a reservoir, and you know, and basically what they're doing is just taking the fish from you. No, they can't can unless they leave the skin on. And I've never seen a canning recipe where you leave the skin on a fish. And so they can process by filleting and skinning and freezing, not skinning, filleting and freezing the fillets, but they can't process by canning.
Oh, this situation may have been a little bit different because they had taken the limit off of the salmon up there.
Well, how many years ago was that?
It was 20 years ago, Kelvin.
Oh, 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so
the reservoir was just overrun with salmon, and we caught as many as I think 30 of them and brought them home. And we did can them with the skins on. We just put them in white mouth jars and poked them in there, and as fast as I could put them in, my wife would throw them in a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
In fact, I still have one jar of it left after all these years, and it just opened them up, and it's like salmon or tuna fish. The bones are soft and chewable, and you just stir up the meat with a little bit of pickle relish or something and put on crackers, and it was wonderful.
Well, that sounds good. Yeah. Well, when it comes to limits like that, and I think we do have I can't remember. I think it's a 15 or 25 kokanee salmon limit on Mackey Reservoir right now. I'd have to look in the rule books. And the reason they have those big rules, sometimes people are going to ask, well, why would they pull the full limit off? Well, what happens in a lot of these landlocked lakes like that with salmon is they're very productive, these fish, and they have a lot of babies and they survive. Well, then it stunts their growth because there's too many of them in there and there's not enough forage for them. And so when we put these type of limits, on something like that, without the limit on there, they could can it. But right now, with just our 6 fish limit, you can't do that.
Well,
6 fish, or you wouldn't be able to process.
We thank you for the call, and we've got more calls ahead too as well, plus one more half hour with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. It's coming up on 9:30. 40. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. Kelton Hatch, our studio guest, joins us from Idaho Fish and Game. He's here for another half hour. If you have a question or comment for him, you can reach him at 736-0300. I know we left a caller who was looking to get in touch with us just before the break. It's 9:34. It's 37. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. And caller, you're up next with Kelton on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Go ahead. All right, we got somebody listening on the delay, which of course is there in case one of us says something awful. But You got to listen to the telephone and not the radio. Oh, I guess somebody decided we answered the question already. 736-0300. That's 736-0300. As long as we're still talking about some of these things. Hunter education instructors. We had a conversation about this just in the last couple of months.
We did, and the reason I'm bringing it up again is if you're interested in passing on, some good ethics to the next generation of hunters, we're actually having a class this weekend to try to introduce the basic information to people that are interested in teaching these hunter ed classes. Our hunter education and archery education program is done solely by volunteers. We do have a staff, Tanner Ray Alberti, that manages the program. And what the hunter ed instructors will do, it's about 18 hours is what the time is needed for donation for teaching these classes. We try to do them over a 5-night period, a couple hours a night, 2 to 3 hours a night, and then a Saturday morning or something like that for the field day. But it's a good way to give back to the sport. We in the Magic Valley, we do between 12 to 1,600 students a year. And in each of those classes, people can, if they become an instructor, they can pick how many students they want. We try to keep them under 25, but some teachers opt to go as low as 15 students in a class. But anything, if you're interested in doing that, basic rules is you just need to call us, get on the agenda for this weekend, tell them that you're coming, and we'll do a background check on you after the class, and because they'll be working with kids, and so we have to have the background check. And then we'll put you with an instructor to see if you enjoy teaching and like the program. And then if you do, then we have another 4-hour class that we put you through on teaching techniques and getting you kind of familiar with all the programs and stuff like that. And then we can kick you loose and have you help us with this hunter ed program.
And we have a caller with us. You're up next. You're on the air on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And what's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. I'd like to contribute a couple thoughts. Years ago when I was able to hunt, we used to gut out a sage hen immediately, otherwise the meat would spoil after we shot it. But also, a friend of mine had great recipes for smoking fish and game, green apple, corn husks, so forth. Maybe Fish and Game every now and then can do a recipe in the Wednesday newspapers showing how to prepare and smoke fish and game, and with the recipes, and that the fish and game end up being a real delicacy.
Sounds like an idea.
We were talking about that off air.
Well, yeah, we were, and that's one of my favorite things to do, and that is a really good idea to try to get something out like that. We have a fish and game and fish recipe book right now that we sell at the office for the cost of the publication. But me and a lot of my hunting friends and stuff like that, in my house anyway, I get to cook most of the game. My wife did not grow up in a hunting family. She loves eating it all, but so I always try to find different recipes. And so, but no, I think that's a great idea. You can also share them on our Facebook page, Magic Valley Fish and Game. And if you've got some fish and game recipes, please throw them on there and share them with other people.
We don't mention that often enough. We have another caller with us coming up on 9:38. You're on the air.
Hi, Kelton. Hey, did you ever check on the Walcott Reservoir for me? I called you last month and just wondered whether you did any research on it.
I forgot what the question was because I usually go back and ask that day, and if I can my brain is gone right now. Well, what was the question?
The question was, we're just not catching the fish we used to. Have they not planted it or...
Well, the funny thing, yes, I did. I went back and talked to Doug McGargle about that. And he said he didn't understand what exactly was going on himself because he had some reports from other anglers that had been really struggling. Typically, we plant a few down there, and then there's a bunch of fish that migrate in from that are planted down at Coldwater and stuff like that. And he didn't know what exactly was going on. However, this month I was talking to some other guys, and they set out ice fishing. It's been one of the most incredible years that they've had because they've been catching some big fish.
I know a lot of guys that ice fish there, and they're not having too good of luck, even though we have caught a couple good ones. It's not like it used to be at all.
Yeah, and he wasn't exactly sure. I do know he did say that numbers of fish that been stocked were down. We have reduced the stocking numbers in all the river. However, the fish have been bigger. And I think that's one of those things that we're still trying to tickle out on what's going to happen with these larger fish that we've been planting down there. If they're going to react the same way as the smaller fish, the catchables, the 8 to 10 inches we'd been, because we're planting 10 to 12 inch fish now. And so he really doesn't know, but they're back on the planning schedule, and I know he's actually anticipating on putting more fish in there this year.
And we have a short break. More coming up with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game.
I'm glad.
Joining us in studio, Kelton Hatch. He is here from Idaho Fish and Game. Joins us on a monthly basis on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number 736-0300. A couple of things you do have to wrap up, though, before we close the hour off today.
Well, yeah, I'd like to talk just a little bit about bitter brush planting, and this is a spring program that we do every year. We try to get volunteers out. Last year we had close to 1,000 volunteers that went out and helped us plant bitter brush and sagebrush. And what this is to do is just rehab areas that have been burnt in fires, or we have a lot of cheatgrass and things like that. So if you have a group or a group of volunteers, scouting, 4-H groups, or anything like that, civic organizations, you would like to get involved in this, call us at 324-4359. You can talk to Tanner Ray Alberti or Eric Freeman. We do have 3 plantings set right now, and if you can attend any one of those, first one's on March 5th, and that's going to be down by Bliss. We have another one on March 12th that's going to be down by King Hill on the BLM Road, and then we've got one on March 19th that's going to be up by Preacher Bridge near Richfield. And so if those will work, and if those won't, we'll supply plants and planting materials and tools. So jump up there, call us, and get involved.
And then you have Super Hunt drawings as well.
We do, and I wanted to touch on the Super Hunt drawings. What we have is you can draw basically a governor's tag, and what this tag is for deer, elk, or antelope, or moose. It's a tag that allows you to hunt from unit to unit to unit as long as the season's open, and it's a $6 application fee, and we have our first drawing is going to be May 31st. It costs $6. The big thing about this is all this money gets turned over into our Access Yes program, where we purchase access to private property to allow hunters and sportsmen to either fish or hunt on their ground, and so or get access to the Snake River. So apply for this. We also have another option. I like joking around. I call it the divorce package. It's where it's $20. It's for the $20 for an entry. It's the super combo hunt, and that does give you all 4 of the tags: a deer, elk, moose, and pronghorn. And so you'll be just really, really busy if you get that one. But what a great way to donate as well as help your cause out on hunting.
We have a caller with us, and of course, telephone number if you'd like to reach the program, 736-0300. Kelton Hatch, our guest from Idaho Fish and Game. And you're up next. You're on air on News Radio 1310 KLIX.
Morning, guys. This is the individual that called, and Kelton gave me a great recipe for that poached sturgeon. But I got a comment on the ice fishing.
Okay.
I've found out that the best ice fishing is sometime in July, and that's after all of it's gone. But in all seriousness,
I would concur.
I just wanted to tell you, if you guys want to get out and shoot some rabbits, we've been going out towards the Oakley there and towards Cottonwood, and there's some serious rabbit population out there, but they're like thoroughbreds, so you better be good. So
that's a very good point. We've got a big bunny population right now, so get out there and have some fun.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, want to thank him for the call. You got to lead them because of their speed, right?
Well, you do, or find them long range, and they're really quite good table fare. The cottontails, they go through February of the season, and so get out there. I've never eaten jackrabbits myself, but I know a lot of people that do, And so, but they are also just, we get a lot of damage claims, haystacks. In the 80s and 90s, we actually had haystacks tipping over because of too many rabbits. So it won't hurt the population.
No, no. There was a story out of, I think it was Australia, where rabbits got introduced and they got to be so
Prolific
that they had to put up fences across the country just to try to block them off. And they had rabbits, on top of rabbits backed up against the fences.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The only thing I think that probably is as busy as they are when it comes to mammals would be cats.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you weren't around here, but there in the 80s, there's a thing called the Mud Lake Bunny Bash. And that's because they would actually do rabbit drives and then kill them and load them up in semis and take them and process them. But I mean, they had thousands and thousands and thousands. I mean, we had times where they would completely clean a cornfield off and there wouldn't be any stalk standing, and so destroy a whole crop. And so they can get pretty prolific.
It's 9:49 and Kelton Hatch in studio with us on News Radio 1310 KLIX. NewsRadio1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. 736-0300. Also, you wanted to mention spring hunting applications.
I do. If you didn't get applied for your bear tags, it's too late. You're going to have to general hunt. Bear application season ended on the 15th, and so that's over. But you still have time to apply for spring turkey hunts down here in the South Hills. We increased the permits down there to 30 for each of the 3 hunts, so there's 90 tags down there. There's a youth hunt that kids can apply for up to the age of 17. From April 8th to May 25th, and then there's 2 other hunts, so we divide that season in half. We've got an April 15th to May 5th hunt, and then a May 6th to May 25th hunt, and you can apply for those at any of your vendors. And those are Rio Grande turkeys. You can't kill those anywhere or hunt them anywhere else in the state. We have a Merriam or Eastern Cross turkey that's in a lot of the parts of Idaho. If a person's willing to drive up north, you can actually harvest 2 turkeys. And they're a lot of fun. It gets you out, stretches your legs. Bear season's going to open on April 15th, as well as the general turkey season. So we're almost full circle back to hunting season again.
When we say bear season, are we including both black and brown?
Just black bears. They come in multiple color phases. I mean, you can shoot brown black bears, but we don't have a grizzly season in Idaho, and so the grizzly is protected. We're working on that, trying to get them delisted where we can have a few permits, just because we're getting so many of them over in eastern Idaho, and we're starting to have some issues. In fact, more and more people getting bit.
Associated Press mentioned that this morning, that population along the state line with Montana
is just blossomed.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have to start doing something to manage that population, and they're starting to cause a lot of issues for the locals that live there.
And if that population grows, I mean, eventually it's just like moose; they start wandering this way.
Well, they already are. I mean, they're picking up radio collar signals as far south of Soda Springs over on that population, which is, several hours out of, I mean, it's got to be 100 and some odd miles out of Jackson, and, all the way up through Glacier and the Flathead Valley, and there's quite a strong population. We was up there as actually at a bear symposium a couple of years ago, and they said in one cornfield in the town of Ronan, which is right on the highway that drives up to the Flathead Valley, they had 23 grizzlies going into cornfields and causing depredation to crops because they eat a lot of plant material is a big portion of their diet. I mean, they're carnivores. I mean, they're omnivores, but bears, a lot of times their diets will consist of less than 6 to 10% proteins like that, and the rest of it will be vegetables basically. And so they were having lots of issues up through there, and so hopefully we can get those animals managed the best we can, and we can offer some opportunity as well as kind of protect people's property and stuff.
Yeah, there was that fellow up at Sandpoint, I guess, last year. He got the pictures taken. They were getting into his condo. They were climbing up to the second floor, raiding his refrigerator.
Oh, you bet.
And they were eating all of the fruits and vegetables in the refrigerator.
You bet. We've had them in chicken coops. Chickens have been just a nightmare anywhere in those bear areas because it offers slow-moving game that's fenced,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and gardens, and it's just living with wildlife is a trick, and right now when people are out and about, you just need to be cautious, keep your foods away and stuff. I was talking to some kids the other night. They were out camping in bear area, and so they were kind of concerned about it. And they were sleeping in hammocks. So what did they do? They said, well, maybe we ought to put the cook fire near us so that we can keep the fire going all night to kind of, well, that's the worst thing you can do, because all it's doing is you leave all the scent from your food in that fire, and then you put it right by where you're sleeping. So you want your cooking fire away, and try to live by those principles in the summer. We don't have any issues with them down in the South Hills, but we do have a strong bear population up north around Sun Valley and all the way up through that part of Idaho. And so just be cautious when you're out and about. Every year we have issues in Sun Valley area with bears breaking into cars, garbage cans, garages, bird feeders, houses. One bear broke into the house 2 or 3 times, just ate his Haagen-Dazs. I don't buy Haagen-Dazs, so he wouldn't have liked my house.
Expensive ice cream.
So I'm more of a, Western family kind of guy.
I remember years ago I was camping with my daughter, and we had the cook fire going at night, and we had roasted some marshmallows, and then of course we locked up the cabin, but we had after sunrise in the morning we had black bear outside looking for the scraps from the marshmallows that may have dropped. And so they were attracted by that as well. And even though they may only weigh a few hundred pounds, you still don't want an encounter with them either.
No, you don't. And we have more issues with black bears than we've ever had with grizz, when it comes to problem bears. And see, we don't have grizz in the Sun Valley area. We just have the black bears, but we have a lot of issues up there with them. And so people just need to be cautious. When you live with wildlife, a lot of people go, well, I live in Twin Falls. Well, there's wildlife all around you. This morning I hit an owl going to work. That's another thing you need to be really cautious about, because it was raining hard, and this owl just came up from the borrow pit and flew right in the side of my truck on 93, because he was probably hunting mice, even though it was drizzling a little bit. You just have to be cautious. A lot of deer around. Every year we have people with skunk issues. This is skunky time of year right now. And so don't feed your pets outside. You feed your dog on your back porch. You feed your cat on your back porch. Guess what? If there's a skunk in there, you'll be feeding the skunk in the back porch. And then you'll have an uninvited guest that may build a den underneath your porch because it's close to a food source, because you put your dog food or your cat food out there every day. Last thing, and we get calls all the time. And so feed your pets inside, feed them in their kennel, feed them during daylight hours, take the pet food and put it up at night. And you can help avoid those type of situations.
My daughter's involved with most of those stories in my life, because not only did roasting marshmallows with her attract bears the next day. One time we were at my sister's house, and she'd been eating a ham sandwich, and we didn't realize this, but she decided not to finish it and left it on the front porch. And we came back from a bonfire at the neighbor's house to find a skunk eating the ham sandwich. And of course, once you're on that porch, and it's an enclosed porch, it just had a narrow stairway going up, and there's the skunk and there's you. Something has to give.
Yeah, there's not a lot of place to run.
Yes. So now that she's grown up, I hope she's actually changed some of her habits, because otherwise she's going to have to take a bath in, what do you call it, tomato juice?
Tomato juice, yeah. Well, or go down and get some of that dog scent removal stuff that they use on dogs for skunks. But, and it seems really simple. I mean, I've lived in the country all my life, and it's just like, little things like that can make such a big difference. I mean, we live in the country right now. We never have issues with skunks. The reason is we never leave any food sources outside. It's just something I was raised with. But this time of year, it's just amazing. In downtown Twin Falls, in Gooding, and Burley, we've got 10 traps that we rent out to people for trapping skunks. They're gone all the time. And if people can just do some simple things, clean up your garden, clean up your the apples from your trees.
Mm-hmm.
They're omnivores. They'll eat whatever's available. don't feed your pets outside. Get rid of piles of rocks and brush out of your yard. Get rid of it, and don't give them home areas and things like that. And it'll help you. But with the deer, that's a little bit different. I mean, people just need to be cautious all along Rock Creek Canyon, along Twin Falls Canyon, and with deer populations down in those areas, we've had a few calls this spring on mountain lions and stuff too. So people need to be cautious about that. I wouldn't be afraid, but they just need to be aware.
We want to talk to Kelton Hatch in about a month, probably right around St. Patrick's Day.
Sometime around there, we'll talk.
Yeah,
I love coming back. But if you have any questions, give us a holler or call us at the office at 324-4359.
I was going to say the only thing green we'll talk about though on St. Patrick's Day is likely just the trees.
There you go. Yes. And go to our Facebook and keep up to date. It's Magic Valley Fish and Game. Join up, and we try to put 2 or 3 little news items out there a week, so keeps kind of people informed on changes at the department.
Great to see you, and again, see you in a month. We've got Rush Limbaugh coming up in just a few minutes following the news from Fox at 10 o'clock. Glenn Beck this afternoon at 4, and sandwiched in between, Sean Hannity, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX.